Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update. Hi, welcome to Indian Express. How are you?
Phase one is I'm going to be really productive. This is an opportunity. I'm going to work out. I'm going to write. You make a list of 20 things you'll do every day. Does my language need to be clean?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So after it depends from person to person, between 4 days and a week. You're like, to hell with this, boss. I'm just going to watch Netflix and chill, right? But then I think eventually you come to terms with it, and then you find your rhythm and your groove.
You're in the business of live events, of course, which is hugely hit because of the pandemic. How long do you think it would take for its revival now?
See, I think all of us are adapting to how things are going to be going forward. As far as live events in the way that we have known it in the past, that's probably going to change for a couple of years, until there's a cure or a vaccine. Because remember, in my business in stand-up comedy, you ideally want 200 or more people bunched up together, sitting shoulder to shoulder with their bodies touching and laughing at the same time. That's not happening for a while. But on the flip side, I have been surprised and disgusted at myself for how much I'm loving doing online comedy shows. So, for example, I did a show last weekend. I had 400 people from 24 different cities. I had 25 of them on my screen with their audio and video on. So they became like my front row. I could chat with them. I could pick on them. When I spoke to somebody, I put their video on Spotlight so everyone could see them. I could pick on them and their families. And it was surprisingly awesome. And I hated myself for enjoying it because, and I'm sure it's okay for me to say this, but all my life I've been saying that stand-up comedy, it's a bit like sex. It's best enjoyed live, not in front of a screen. There's no substitute for actually being there. So if you're watching it on a screen, you're effectively surfing comedy porn. But I thoroughly enjoyed being a porn star. So
how do you deal with the non-productive days? I mean, when it gets to you, what do you resort to doing during such time?
The upside is, Nikita, that I find that respect for comedians has gone up a lot. Because for 15 years, all my family and friends have been saying, you comedians, you sit at home all day and you do nothing. Now they have realized how difficult it is to do that it requires talent and mental strength.
Your work or a stand-up also involves a lot of human interaction, live human interaction with people. Since the time you've started doing the Zoom shows, what has been some of the most rewarding moments or any anecdote that you can share, which, as you said, you were feeling satisfied as you would have been in a live show?
So one of the most rewarding anecdotes for me was I had done a show, the same show where I had done 400 people, and it was a corporate show. And when the show finished, I said, "Thank you guys, goodbye," and I turned off my video, right? But I was still on the call, right? So most of the people logged off, and then 25 of I think maybe 10 of the senior client guys were left on the call, and they were talking about the show and how it went. And it was fantastic because the feedback was really positive. They said this was great, we should keep doing this. They said we're sick of all these webinars and learning stuff. All we want to do is release stress and laugh, right? And we're willing to pay for it, and there's money is no issue, this and that. And of course, after listening to this for 5 minutes and thoroughly enjoying it, then I came back on the call and I said, "Hey guys, I just want to let you know I'm listening and this is the favorite part of my show."
How do you write your sketches now? How different is it, if I may ask? Because this is something unprecedented. There is no guidebook, there is no rule book to how to work.
Nikita, it's not very different because as comedians, when different things happen, it's very good for us because it's a different kind of stimulation, right? And it forces you to think about the new situation, right, and write about that. So from a comics point of view, frankly speaking, the more pain and the more misery, the better, because that makes for very good comedy material.
But do you think India is the right audience? I think a lot of us take comedy too seriously.
That we do, But not only do audiences take comedy too seriously, comedians also in India take themselves too seriously, right? I mean, a lot of comedians tend to think that their opinion should be the opinion of how India thinks and all of that. Listen, some of us just tell jokes, you know. We're not necessarily the most intelligent or well-informed or, you know,
in an authority to speak those things.
Moral high ground people. We're just regular people who tell jokes. So I don't think we need to take ourselves so seriously.
Tell us something about what you're writing now. What do we get to read next?
I'm interviewing a bunch of super achievers from various fields, men and women, and I want to try and get inside their heads and find out what makes them tick. And I want my reader to take 3 things away from it. One, the fact is that everybody has struggled, no matter how successful they are. But whether or not they have dealt with that challenge well or not, they have learned from it. And so can you. The second thing I want them to take away is, now when I was growing up, I had a lot of heroes and role models. Suddenly when I grew up, these role models and heroes kind of disappeared. Until I realized that every human being is flawed, right? So, but that doesn't mean they don't have a hero story. So you don't have to be perfect, but you can still be the hero of your own story. And the third thing that I want people to take away, you know, Nikita, when I talk to these people, each of them are superbly successful, but they are all so different in terms of what they value, what their journeys are, what their emphasis has been. And what I want to get out of that for my reader is that there is no right way, right? You can only be a second best Steve Jobs, but you can be the best Nikita, right? So you need to be authentic and carve your own path. You don't have to try and imitate anybody else. And there is no right way. Your way is just fine. So yeah, that's my objective.